All right, let's talk about one of the greatest tools I've had to increase my sales, my efficiencies, my productivity, all that stuff, all those buzzwords. This little baby right here. This is the greatest sales tool I've had, bar none. And it was introduced to me about 4 or 5 years ago as a coach. One of my coaches gave it to me. So here's what it is. It's a digital chess timer. I'll put a link somewhere around here. You guys can see it. It's less than 20 bucks on Amazon. Again, there's two different brands. I switch because like each one's like a dollar less than the other, but I've given this away to realtors. I've given it away to recruits, to other salespeople, to friends that are in sales. This thing is awesome. Let me tell you why. So as you can see, it's a little chess timer. Right now, I just started this at the taping of this video. A chess timer, normally these words green and red aren't here, but you can switch. Like you click a little button and this side starts going. You click this button down and this starts back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So what do you do with it? Simple. We track our green time. Green is money. Money is good. Green means go. This is the time that we spend in our days as salespeople doing the things we're supposed to be doing to generate new business. Basically, it boils down to eyeballs and conversations, right? So talk tos, phone calls, and eyeballs, right? Phone calls and eyeballs. That's catchy. Let's go with that. Phone calls and eyeballs to where if you're on the phone with a borrower, if you're on the phone with a realtor, financial planner, referral partner, if you're having that conversation that gets you business where you're asking for business, that's green time. So you click the little thing and you make sure the green time's going. Now, in the event that you're not having those conversations where you're doing a loan application, you're pre-qualifying somebody, you're doing emails, you're doing text messages, social media, whatever it is, the red time goes, right? So let me tell you a quick little story on why this matters. So when I first started this, I was given the homework assignment. It was kind of annoying. And I'm not going to lie, it takes a minute to get the habit, but now I can't talk on the phone without slapping this thing in front of me to turn it on or turn it off, right? In terms of red or green. So when I first started this, I was like, man, I do fine. I do plenty of prospecting. Nope. It was, I think it was like 30 on average is like 30 minutes a day, which is, if you do the math, is right around 4.5 hours a week, depending on just how much I got in each day. So it's basically 40 hours a week. So if you're, or 4 hours a week. So if you're working 40 hours a week, which I work more, means less than 10% of my time is doing the activities that actually makes me more money. It was super humbling. It actually ticked me off a little bit. And I was like, man, that stinks. And that kind of gets you down a little bit. But the reality is you need to know where you are before you can plan on where you're going. And the really neat part about this is an interesting byproduct is I have this on my desk, and I'm sitting there doing this. My boss would walk in and I would then slap it over to red time and look at him like, yeah, what you need? And I tell you what, he learned a moonwalk. It was kind of this little Michael Jackson maneuver. He's like, never mind, we'll talk later. Because he knows that I'm tracking my green time. And talking to your boss does not get you more business. So it has absolutely been the number one thing that's increased my business. Because I promise you guys, as you start tracking this, you will notice that business will improve because you'll start being more focused on your green time. Even if you don't mean to, just paying attention, it certainly helps. So I actually own three of these bad boys, one for the home office, one for my real office, and one for the car. So when I go on appointments, if I'm in the car and I'm not talking to somebody, maybe I'm talking to a teammate or a title company trying to fix something or whatever, I'll have it on the red time. When it's green, even in the car, I'll switch it, right? And so I just write them down as I leave the car, go into the real office. I'll just write down the time, 28 minutes of green or 28 minutes of red or whatever it was at the time. But I have three of them. You don't have to. You can carry yours all around, but I just have three to make it easy to not have to worry about, forgetting it somewhere else. So when you do this, I can promise you the more green you have, about 60 to 90 days later, the more closings you will have. So again, as I started doing this, it's hard in the beginning, but let's qualify this because I often get the questions of, hey, what's red time? What's green time? Again, red time, if you're not on the phone and you don't have somebody eyeball to eyeball, it is red time. I don't care. People are like, well, I'm texting back and forth with a client or I'm texting. I don't care. That for me, that's not green time. Be honest with yourself. Like somebody's not going to give you a lead. Now, again, somebody you already know, certainly, maybe that is engaging, but the reality is you don't develop relationships. You can't ask for the hard ask in text and social media. You got to do those things. But the reality is that's not for me green time. Now, here's the thing. You can say, Mark, I disagree. It is. Cool. You do you, man. Like at the end of the day, just be consistent. Figure out what your rules to this game are and live by your rules. You're not competing with me. I'm not competing with you. We're competing with ourselves. So as long as you're honest about your green time and red time, that's going to help you determine what goes in there. So for me, if my lips are moving on the phone, it's green time so long as I ask for business. Now, some people say, what about my title company? They give me business. If you're not dialing the phone proactively, you dialing the phone to call them to ask them for more business or to ask them to introduce you to realtors, it's not green time. Because if you happen to be talking to about the Smith file, look, you might work it in like, hey, who do you know? But the reality is that's not the intention. That's not the purpose. So be honest with yourself and don't just count green to count green. So again, my 2 cents, when you're purposely calling for business, and you can say, well, what about like calling a bar for conditions? I think that's green time. Here's why. Every time you talk to the buyer or borrower, you should be asking for business. Hey man, how did I do 1 to 10? And there's a whole script. If you guys want it, let me know. Got a whole video on how to do a good client referral script without feeling cheesy or slimy like a salesperson. But every time you talk to somebody, you should be asking them for business. So yes, when you call to do conditions, it is green time in my opinion. So the main tips I would say, here's a couple of just, winning tips for the basics is, be consistent with the time, get the habits, and that just comes with time. The first couple of weeks, just give yourself some grace, but realize that as you do this, it's easier when you time block. If you're like, hey, I'm calling these 20 people right now, it's easy. Put it on green, make the phone calls, and don't stop making the phone calls until you're done. It's easier to let that go versus turning on and off, on and off. Secondly, stop the clock for personal stuff. So like my wife, when Caroline calls me, there's a button on here so you guys can see at this point. Let's start. It's on red. Red's moving. Caroline calls. I'll just stop it. That's not work. That's not anything. Or if I got a kid's appointment at school, I got to go do, or just anything where it's like, hey, I'm going to take a 30-minute lunch break. Well, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to go refill my water. Stuff where I'm not working, right? I'm obviously at the office, but I'm not working. I will stop this. And so when you stop it, the pro tip is put it on your keyboard. Because when you come back, there have been times in the beginning where I would forget to restart the clock. So all you got to do is push play and it goes. I got to be honest. I don't know what these two buttons do down here. I don't even touch them. I touch that one and this one. So be consistent, play by your own rules. Just be consistent. Stop the clock when it's like meetings that you have that are not business related, that are personal meetings, and put it on your keyboard. So now for those who are like, okay, cool. What's the really good stuff? Look, here's the pro tips I have for you. For me, I looked at last year's volume. We were down. And the reality is I haven't added any real, not on purpose at least, any intentional new business partners. So while green time, I'm sitting there calling the people that give me business, the past clients, the realtors, the builders we work with, all that stuff. I wasn't proactively going out to find new business. So now, pro tip, this is what I do. You don't have to. It may be green time, but I'm making sure I'm now having what I call gold time. So it's not on this chest timer. I recognize that. But gold time is where I'm actually spending my time prospecting. I'm doing my best. I'm failing right now. It's only been a few weeks. I'm trying to get my gold time to be at least 1 hour a day. Now, technically, that is green time. So I still count the green time. The clock still goes when it's green. But I am saying from 9 to 10, I'm calling these 20 new names. I may not get through all 20. I may get through all 20. If I get all voicemails, it's going to be pretty quick and it's not an hour's worth. But the reality is I'm tracking my gold time because that's how you make your gold, right? So if you want to do that, more power to you. I would say the other part too is as you do this every day, just write it down in your notebook, right? So there's a whole thing on a time tracker. If you guys haven't seen that video, it's a good one. So I write down what I do every single day, both green and red time. And then you can flip through and see how you've hopefully increased over time. So that's the part where you actually track it. And then if you want to get one step further and get to be the nerd, I love spreadsheets. I love putting all those results at the end of the week, all add up my green time and red time. Because guys, it doesn't matter if you worked a 60-hour work week. If it was all red time, who cares? Now, if you worked 20-hour work week and you had 15 of those hours be green, you're probably a really good producer. So it doesn't matter how much you work. Although I do track the red and the green, add them together. I do a green time column, a red time column, and then shows the total. And again, it shows how much you're really working. Because like, man, I work 50 hours a week. Do you? So by the time you run to the kitchen, grab the snack, or, you do whatever you do, you drive home and you talk to your wife, like you realize you're not probably working quite as much as you thought. At least I didn't. I'll speak for myself. So I would start tracking that. And then lastly, I've heard folks say, man, I set a reward system for myself. I got my friend Carl, he and I were talking about this and did a podcast on it. Carl's like, hey, if I know it, if I hit my goal by Thursday, I can take Friday off. Cool. If you want to do that, say, hey, if I hit whatever your goal is each week in green time, if you hit it, go after it. So for me, to put it in perspective, when I first started, I was 30 minutes a day. Um, my best year, so I averaged it for the whole year, I was 4.33 green hours a day. So that's over 20 hours a week at green time. That was my best year. And I mean that both in terms of green time as well as closings. It works. I fell off the wagon towards the latter half of last year. I stopped a coaching program. That was my fault. I didn't have a replacement. So for those handful of months, I was without a coach and accountability. I just didn't do it, which actually is a really good point. Get a friend, get a buddy. When I first started this, for the first 30 days, I had three other guys doing it with me, my coach and two other students. For first 30 days, you had to take a picture and then send it to what your clock looked like at the end of the day. So it's a good accountability, it's a good motivator. Like, hey, I did an hour and a half, I'm proud. And then the coach would show on of 6.5 hours of green. And you're like, good night. And I do have those. I have 6.5 hours of green times. A lot of times they're Mondays. Well, the problem is I do a good job at 6.5 hours. I get leads. And then my time on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday goes down in the green time because I'm busy now working on files. I need to work on being more consistent. The other thing too is it helps you spread out your day. If you know that on Monday you're pounding the phones for 6.5 hours, maybe you back off just a touch and spread that out to where you're doing it maybe Monday and Tuesday, because you can get burnt out. If you're hitting the phones that hard, or if you're having meetings after meeting after meeting after meeting, it gets really tough. And you kind of come back after a day of getting whipped and you're just like, man, I don't want to do that tomorrow. So it helps you at least kind of just become more aware of what your day is. So my recommendation, so here's the action items. One is obviously buy this. Again, I'll put the link on there. But two, go at your own pace. Some folks, and I would recommend this, if you're not sure what to do, just take the first couple of weeks and get in the habit of doing this and just tracking your day. Don't do anything different. Don't try to improve or don't try to beat yourself. Just do this for 2 weeks, 3, 4 at the most, but I'd say about 2 weeks, and get a sense of where you are and form the habits. Because once you do that, you can then start working to improve on it. But you got to know where you are before you go start changing a whole bunch of stuff. So I would just try it and see what happens, because your behavior subconsciously, you'll start becoming more focused and you'll start doing the things. You'll start saying no to the red activities, or you'll do those at night. Because my green, I only start the chess clock at 8 a.m. and I turn it off at 6 p.m. Because to me, that's the calling time, right? So if I work at 6 a.m., I don't count it on the chess timer. I'll record it, on a different column on my worksheet. But the reality is, I'm not calling anybody at 6 a.m. anyway. So between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., that's when the chess clock turns on and off. So get a coach, get a friend, get your buddy accountability partners. You're 7 times, I heard the stat the other day in a book. People are 7 times more likely to hit their goals when they do it with somebody else. So again, whether it's a buddy in the office or, somebody at a different office or a friend at a different company, don't care, a coach, get accountable, have somebody do this and do it at your own pace. Because again, you're only competing with yourself. If you're like, hey man, I'm going all in and doing this tomorrow, good for you. So do whatever it takes. Just remember, consistency is the key, not just in how you do it, but the time. The more you do this, the more you pay attention. I promise it is the best tool there is. So as always, guys, we appreciate, reach out to us if you have any questions. This is Chasing Excellence. You can find me at Mortgage Mark. Just let me know if you guys have any questions, but I'm telling you, this is a game changer. If you don't think so and you disagree with me, let me know. Heck, I'll even buy your chess timer. If you buy it and you hate it, call me and I'll have you send it to me. I'll even pay for the shipping. I'll take it because I give them away as gifts. But the reality is, this is a game changer. Good luck. And just remember, guys, keep chasing excellence.